16 patients, all of them terminal, all of them declared hopeless by conventional medicine, all of them brought to a clinic in San Diego in the summer of 1934, not by a fringe organization, not by a tabloid advertiser, but by a special medical research committee of the University of Southern California. After 90 days of treatment, the committee's findings were unanimous. 14 of the 16 patients were declared clinically cured. The remaining 2 recovered within the following 4 weeks. A 100% cure rate, overseen by some of the most credentialed physicians in the United States, verified by independent doctors and pathologists. And then, within years, the man who built the machine, the company that manufactured it, and every doctor who had publicly used it was systematically destroyed. Nobody talks about this anymore. The thing about a pattern is that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. To understand what happened to Royal Raymond Rife, you have to understand what he had already built before anyone tried to stop him. By 1931, Rife had constructed what he called the universal microscope, an optical instrument containing nearly 6,000 individual parts, built to a level of precision that no commercial manufacturer had yet attempted. Contemporary optical theory held that visible light microscopy had a hard resolution ceiling. Rife's instrument, using polarized light and a heterodyning technique borrowed from radio engineering, was reported by observers to exceed it. In December 1931, the journal Science ran a news item on Rife's microscope and his collaboration with Dr. Arthur Kendall, director of medical research at Northwestern University. That same month, California and Western Medicine, the official journal of the state medical associations of California, Nevada, and Utah, published a peer-authored paper co-written by Rife and Kendall documenting their bacteriological findings. On November 20, 1931, 44 of the most prominent physicians in Southern California gathered for a dinner at the Pasadena estate of Dr. Milbank Johnson, a dinner publicly billed as the end to all diseases. They had seen the microscope. They had seen what it showed, and they were not fringe believers. They were the establishment. That is the world into which the 1934 clinic was born. Rife's central hypothesis was this: every microorganism, every bacterium, every virus, every pathogen has a specific resonant frequency. Broadcast that exact frequency at sufficient intensity, and the organism vibrates until it structurally collapses. He called this the mortal oscillatory rate. The analogy is not obscure. An opera singer who holds the right note can shatter a wine glass. The glass is not touched. It is resonated to death. Rife proposed that the same principle, applied with precision, could selectively destroy a pathogen inside a living body without harming surrounding tissue, without surgery, without pharmaceuticals. He built the beam ray machine, a plasma tube device that emitted targeted electromagnetic frequencies. The treatment lasted 3 minutes, once every 3 days. No drugs, no pain, no detectable sensation. In Rife's own words from his 1953 account, a tube lights up and 3 minutes later the treatment is completed. The virus or bacteria is destroyed and the body then recovers itself naturally. In 1934, the University of Southern California assembled a committee, including Dr. Arthur Kendall of Northwestern, Dr. Alvin Ford the pathologist, and Dr. Rufus Kleinschmidt, President of USC, and brought 16 terminal cancer patients to Rife's San Diego clinic. The results were remarkable. 86.5% of the patients were completely cancer-free after 90 days, and the remaining 13.5% achieved the same outcome after an additional 30 days of treatment. The committee did not dispute it. They had overseen it. For several years after 1934, the work continued. Follow-up clinics were conducted in 1935, 1936, and 1937 by the head of the USC Medical Committee, and results were verified. Milbank Johnson, the chairman of the Special Research Committee, operated his own cancer clinic using the Rife method for a full decade, documenting case after case of cancer reversal. In 1939, Rife was formally invited to address the Royal Society of Medicine in London, which had independently verified aspects of his findings. He was also invited to speak in Germany and France. The international medical establishment was watching. That same year, something else happened. Around 1938, Morris Fishbein, who had acquired control of the American Medical Association, sent attorneys to Rife with an offer to buy the exclusive rights to the technology. Rife refused. After that refusal, documents, research photographs, and films all began disappearing from Rife's San Diego laboratory. His virus microscopes were vandalized. Then the legal machinery started. Fishbein offered Phil Hoyland, an investor in Rife's manufacturing company, Beam Ray legal assistance to file a lawsuit against his own partners in the corporation. A lawsuit ensued. The 1939 trial put an end to the proper scientific investigation of Rife's frequency machine. Though Rife won the case, the legal bills bankrupted Beam Ray entirely, and it shut down. One company, destroyed not by losing in court, but by the cost of winning. Here is where the skeptical account runs out of answers. Dr. Milbank Johnson, who had held the 1931 banquet honoring Rife and chaired the Special Medical Research Committee, was preparing to formally announce the results of the 1934 study to the press. According to reports, just hours before making that announcement, he was fatally poisoned and his papers were lost. A separate laboratory in New Jersey that had been independently replicating Rife's work burned to the ground, while the scientist running the program was visiting Rife in San Diego, destroyed precisely as the researchers were preparing to publish. Arthur Kendall, director of medical research at Northwestern University, co-author of the 1931 peer-reviewed paper, and one of the most respected bacteriologists in America, accepted nearly $250,000 to drop everything and retire to Mexico. $250,000 during the Great Depression to simply disappear. In 1939, 6 months after articles about Rife appeared in the San Diego Evening Tribune, the San Diego Medical Society banned the use of all his instruments. Every doctor who had publicly used the technology was threatened with losing their medical license. By the end of 1939, almost all of the 44 doctors who had attended the 1931 banquet celebrating Rife's work were actively denying they had ever met him. 44 men, unanimous in their reversal within 8 years. What are the odds? Here is where serious researchers must be honest. The scientific critique of Rife's work is not nothing. Modern optics experts point out that resolving live viruses at extreme magnification with visible light conflicts with known physical limits. The diffraction barrier of light itself imposes a ceiling that Rife's claimed resolution would have exceeded. The primary peer-reviewed clinical documentation of the 1934 trials, the kind of controlled, blinded, replicated study that modern medicine requires, has never surfaced in the public record. These are real problems for anyone attempting to verify Rife's claims at the level of modern science. And yet, today, the FDA has approved a device called Tumor Treating Fields, TT Fields, which delivers low-intensity alternating electric fields to treat glioblastoma, one of the most lethal brain cancers known to medicine. It is standard oncology. Shockwave lithotripsy uses focused acoustic energy to fragment kidney stones. These are mainstream therapies. The core principle that precisely tuned electromagnetic frequencies can selectively disrupt biological targets is not pseudoscience. It is FDA-approved medicine. What was never allowed was a properly funded, properly controlled clinical trial of Rife's specific frequencies on cancer. Not because it was tested and failed, because, after 1939, It was never formally tested again. The question is not whether frequency-based medicine works. The FDA says it does. The question is who decided that Royal Rife's version of that question was not worth answering, and why. Here is what the documented record leaves us with. In 1931, 44 of America's most prominent physicians celebrated a man whose microscope had been written up in science in California and Western medicine. In 1934, a USC-supervised committee watched 16 terminal cancer patients recover under his treatment and declared the results unanimous. In 1938, the head of the American Medical Association attempted to purchase Rife's technology. Rife refused. By 1939, his manufacturing company was bankrupted through litigation, his laboratory vandalized, his documents stolen, his collaborators bought off or silenced, and the San Diego Medical Society had banned his instruments. The man who had been celebrated by 44 doctors in 1931 could not find a single one willing to admit they knew him by 1939. Milbank Johnson died hours before his press conference. His papers vanished. Arthur Kendall took a fortune to disappear into Mexico. The New Jersey lab burned. The official story calls this the natural failure of a pseudoscientific fringe. The documented timeline calls it something else. And today, as the FDA approves electromagnetic cancer therapies and funds frequency-based research under different names and different patent holders, the question that every serious researcher eventually arrives at remains unanswered. What exactly was on those frequency charts that made them worth destroying?